you've really hit the nail on the head with the word ego. I really don't think there's a place for ego in business. I think that it's highly destructive. It clouds decisions. It really works against you. And I think when you can remove all the ego from the room and you're looking at something objectively and with humility, and you're open to, hearing what the people around you have to say and taking the good from that and elevating your idea or your concept or your decision. I mean, that's the best outcome you can hope for. But that's really hard to do when there's ego present.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingle, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Craig.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to Behind the Design. So tell us a little bit about Artisan Exterior.
So we specialize in architectural surfaces for pool and landscape environments, and we source those globally. So a lot of different countries around the world that we source from. And it's something that we get a lot of enjoyment out of. It's really satisfying to see our products get used in incredible projects by people like yourself. We work with architects, designers, landscape designers, landscapers, builders, right through to your average retail client who walks through the door and is looking for a product for their home. So yeah, that's us. That's what we do.
Wow. And so I've known of you for quite a while now. How long has the business been running?
So we were formed in 2010. So my brother and I started the business. Well, he actually started it and I joined him. And we actually separated in 2020. He left the business and...
So 10 years in.
Yeah, 10 years in, yep. And I took over the business and I now co-own it with my wife. And yeah, it's been onwards and upwards since then.
Wow. And so I remember you and I briefly touched on that interesting transition of, working with your brother, for example, for 10 years on a concept. Did you create that together, or was it his idea, you came in, or vice versa?
Yeah, so he was a pool builder by trade.
A pool builder?
Yeah.
Okay.
So very trade orientated. And that was sort of where the business started. And then obviously over 10 years, there's a lot that happens and evolves. Yeah. And it got to a point where, we just had different visions for the business. I was really excited about where it could go. And that was kind of a real turning point. I felt like there was so much scope for the business. There was so much more that we could do. And, it really was something that I had grown really passionate about. It's a really exciting industry, and I love the concept of, exploring new products and traveling to see, what's out there and take that and see how we can apply it to our business and to, offer it to our clients. And that was something that really motivated me. So, in the end, got to a point where we weren't really gelling on which way the business should go. And he ultimately decided to exit. So yeah, 2020 March it was. So
That's literally COVID.
Yeah.
The timing.
Literally COVID, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we exchanged on, contracts the day that COVID was declared a global
You're kidding.
pandemic, yeah. Which was very intense time.
Yeah.
And we were actually, I was building our Artarmon showroom at the time as well. So that was a really intense 6-month period where there was a lot of change in the business and a lot of change for me personally. And I think it was really fortunate I had Farron, my wife, was incredibly supportive.
Did she just step in? Or like,
No,
did
not
you
at
sit
all.
down and just have a chat over some pasta? What are your thoughts on being my new business partner?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's not involved in the business. So she actually
Okay.
is, I often refer to her as the least silent partner.
Okay.
She's very, very, smart, funny, beautiful, all the things that I love about her. But she's a general manager herself. So she's got a lot on her plate.
Separately to Artisan.
Separately to Artisan, yeah. And so she's always been a really great source of advice and
Like a sounding
a
board?
sounding board massively, because she's not involved in the day-to-day of the business. So she can give me this really great kind of like separated
Non-emotive.
non-emotive advice. Yeah. And I often bounce off her if there's something that I feel is like really important about what we're doing, or you might have a key person decide that they're going to leave, and that feels huge to you as a person who's in the day-to-day of the business. But I'll go home.
Or as an owner.
Yeah,
Like,
of course, yeah.
you're kind of the umbrella to everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, you're always present. Even if you're not physically present, you're present in your mind.
3 a.m.
3 a.m., 3 a.m. wake up call. And, yeah, so I really, I was fortunate in that I had her to be able to talk to. And that was actually something that it definitely made that transition a lot easier. And then, yeah, we really from that point have gone from strength to strength as a business. I think a lot because we found at that point our direction really holistically. And
When you say we,
yeah,
did you feel that it was quite like if you don't mind sharing, your brother's exited, your wife, is it Farron? Did you say? Farron has sort of come in on some scale.
Yeah.
But really it's just no?
Yeah.
Kind of the visionary of the next steps for Artisan Exterior during COVID.
yeah,
Like, what a
Yeah.
wild time.
yeah. It was super challenging. It was very hard.
Like testing.
Yeah, very hard mentally.
Yeah.
Yep. I saw a psychologist every week for almost 18 months.
Brilliant.
It was.
Brilliant. I love hearing that.
Yeah, I think.
Like, let's be
super
honest.
important. Yeah.
It's so helpful.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the bravest things you can be as a human is vulnerable.
Yeah.
And being able to speak to somebody really openly and have that broken down for you makes you much, much better, I guess, leader,
We show
operator.
up better, right?
Yeah. Yeah, much better. So that was a super challenging time. And we really, and when I say we, I think I've got a great team. And I really think of our business as a collective business. We got a lot of people who contribute daily to the business that really make it function the way that it does. And, I'm in a fortunate position where I've got a managing director in Sarah who has really elevated the operational side of the business massively. And she's helped by a couple of guys, Manaj and Charlie, who have been in with the business for a really long time and really understand the business. So that's been a really nice transition for me to be able to step back a little bit from that daily operation. Not, I'm still present all the time. I'm still there every day,
It's
but
the admin, the tasks.
yeah, just to be able to focus on that stuff that I think is better suited to me. I'm not the strongest when it comes to that operational side of the business. I think Sarah's much better at it than I am. And
But the owner never really is.
no,
Like it's rare because, you and I and a lot of other even guests on the podcast and supplier industry people,
yeah,
a lot of us are the visionaries. There's the word entrepreneur that gets thrown around quite a bit. There's still a little bit of stigma around, but
yeah,
I think I'm going to call it visionary because how can you sit there doing all the admin and the tasks all day when you're trying to look at the bigger picture? Where is the business going? How can I do 6 months, 12 months, 18 months if I'm trying to write all these emails to these website inquiries? Like you can't.
yeah.
It's not feasible.
No, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And
without working overtime and experiencing burnout and everything else.
yeah. And, I think most people who operate businesses are passionate about what they do. So that helps. and that can be a great motivator. But also, what are you using your time on? And is it the best use of your time? And that's something that I try and ask myself fairly frequently.
What can I delegate to?
What can I delegate? Where am I spending my time? Where's my focus? Where's my energy? Because ultimately, if I'm making good decisions, then in theory, the business should perform well. As long as we're all doing our parts properly.
Yeah.
And those decisions often shape where we're collectively focusing our energy and attention as well. So yeah, there's a huge amount of responsibility in that, and I don't take that lightly. And I think if you've got that space to try and make those decisions as effectively as you can, as
be a leader in those.
Be measured, really, really give it the attention that it deserves and requires, then typically speaking, you get a better decision as a result of it, or a better direction.
You seem so calm. Are you like this at work?
I think so. Mostly
even as an owner, I think I need more of this energy. I'm probably not there yet, but
yeah. I mean,
with so many staff,
I get worked up sometimes, but it's no. I mean, it's fun, and I mean, me walking in a bad mood or getting angry about something isn't really going to help. I used to a lot, and I think that transition period through the splitting the business and really having to work so hard on my own mental state during that period really sort of shaped how I am in my day-to-day life now.
Did the psychologist help with that type of thing as well?
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's supporting you, right? That's how I feel when I talk to external parties about, from a support perspective.
Yeah.
When you feel supported, you can be like, okay, cool, that's now off my chest or out of my head.
Yeah. With
someone who isn't in the business, for example, who is not in my intimate relationship, or it's not my mom or my dad.
Yeah.
And then you can get on with things because you're like, okay,
100%.
It's like journaling.
Yeah. And it's actually clears up all that noise, right? So I think what it helped me come to define was that sometimes responses, reactions, certain decisions, they're not really driven by best intention. They're driven by insecurity or by a lack of personal understanding about your response.
Or like self-awareness or...
Yeah, self-awareness. And so when you've got the ability to, I guess, extract yourself from your initial response or be able to, identify what that initial response is.
And where it's coming from.
And what's driving it and all of
Am
the
I triggered?
Yeah. What is...
Damn it, I am.
Yeah. Damn, I've actually got to stop and,
I've actually got to look at that.
Yeah.
How uncomfortable.
It makes for better decisions, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up having, better relationships for sure. Particularly, take personal out of the equation because obviously that's going to benefit. But at work, there's so much more opportunity when you're able to actually listen to people, because you're not being driven by all those internal motivators. So then that gives you the opportunity to hear somebody, and maybe understand them more clearly than you would have beforehand. And then that in turn, creates a better relationship with each of the people that you work with and
better manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think as well, like it's capacity. Like I find myself, if I'm feeling low tolerance, no capacity, and that boils up over time with demand at work usually, or just external pressures, right? Let's just call it that as a whole. That's when I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling this like low capacity, low tolerance, something's too much right now, like I'm off kilter.
Yeah.
And that's when you go into reactive mode, right? Rather than responding.
Yeah.
And in yourself, like I even find a couple of too many coffees in a day and I might be a bit, like not tense, but reactive. I guess there's no other word for it.
Just more wired than
more wired.
Yeah.
100%. And so it's like, okay, pick and choose the days that you need a few coffees and then pick and choose the days where you're like, maybe not today.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to enter that wired energy. Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It's a really interesting journey because it's a classic case of this is behind the design. No one would know this journey. They just think that Artisan Exterior just nailed it during COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, this is what really happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID was such an interesting time because, the highs and lows emotionally, as a business owner were huge. When we all entered that period where we thought we were going into lockdown.
And the industry just boomed.
It was huge, it was a really challenging time. And then obviously everyone was trapped at home and they built their holiday at home, and our industry really, really benefited from it. And the timing for us couldn't have been better. And, we moved from Piedmont to Artarmon. If we were still in Artarmon, in Piedmont, we probably still would have, I think, felt that effect of COVID a lot more because people weren't in the city anymore.
No, it was a dead, what do
was
they
dead
call?
zone.
Like a graveyard.
Yeah. And, that was all, it all turned out to be great timing. But, when you're 2 weeks off completing a showroom and it looks like you're going into national lockdown and you're clearing out the fridge and saying goodbye to, all the guys on site because you don't think you're going to see them for 2 weeks at least.
Minimum.
That feels pretty devastating at that point in time. So,
and you can't forecast. Like none of us could forecast. It was just day by day.
And fortunately, we ended up having an incredible, period where I think everyone in our industry really, really benefit. And that was great. It was, in terms of being able to look back on it, I mean, couldn't really ask for more.
No.
It
Such
was
an interesting time.
Yeah.
And so I guess as a whole then, what have you, so that was 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Artisan Exteriors has been open for 15 years in total. 20, no.
Yeah, so we were formed as Artisan Stone.
Okay.
And then
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
not long after I took over the business, we transitioned to Artisan Exterior. That was actually something that had been worked on prior to me taking over.
And is that, so Artisan Stone then, were you interior at any point?
No.
Always. Yeah, always exterior.
Got a lot of benchtop inquiries though.
I bet. That's why I'm thinking as soon as I hear Artisan Stone, I would probably think kitchen.
Yeah, 100%. And that was a big motivator for, not the benchtops, but a big motivator for transitioning to Artisan Exterior was it was a better reflection of what we do as a business.
100%. And self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Which you need these days, right?
Absolutely.
For customers.
Yeah, helps people understand what you do.
Yeah.
And so, that was a big turning point for us as a business. Obviously, a rebrand, a new website, all of the work that goes into that, and being able to better represent the brand, which I think, we've ultimately been able to achieve, and people have a much clearer idea of what we do.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting because obviously that's allowing us to talk to our customers so much more clearer.
Yeah,
So,
100%. And so what inspires your range? Like you mentioned source, not just in Australia.
Yeah.
Overseas. Yes. And so what inspires you, where do you choose the products? Why certain areas? What comes to mind for you?
I mean, we're all looking for the unicorn product, right?
Yeah.
This
is different.
Yeah.
It's unique.
Something that's different and unique. And I think, at the end of the day, we're selling products that a lot of people can source. And for us, it's really about that customer journey. Service is everything. But when we're looking at products, it all links back to that. So we start with, is it fit for purpose? That's the absolute number one. And then from there, we start to work through, how do we maintain production? How do we make sure that we've got, a cost that is viable for, the
competitive
people who are
pricing.
choosing to purchase it. And then, ultimately, I'm a really visual person, personally. So I'm very much about how it looks, how it feels, what is it going to achieve for us within our range? Is it different? Is it something that's giving us an opportunity to, I guess, bring something people like yourself
or new to the market
might not have seen before?
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting journey, right? Like I was in our glass mosaic factory in Spain a couple of years ago, working through a concept around a glass mosaic that had really subtle color movement. And that was something that was really, really difficult to explain over email, even over, WhatsApp. Just getting that concept that we didn't want huge amounts of movement, because that's typically, you're seeing these really small swatches of products. So it might be 10 tile chips. And the movement needs to be quite extreme to really have impact across 10, 40 by 40 mil glass mosaics. But working with the factory and explaining to them what it was that I was trying to achieve, it was so satisfying to then see a full sheet of that product come through, and then another sheet and another sheet, and then it starts to actually make sense what it is that we're trying to achieve, which is more of that natural kind of gentle color tone variation that comes particularly from a lot of the like natural limestones that we work with, things like that. And so, that happens in January 2 years ago, but really that doesn't land on your desk until, maybe 6 months ago. And so being able to work through that process, I find that incredibly satisfying, because
It's a lot of foreseeing too, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And it's, it sort of is a bit of a gamble at times, because you don't know if,
Especially if
trends
it's like
going to
a
change.
bit different.
Yeah,
'Cause you're
yeah.
like, oh, it's a bit different now, but what if later it's the same as everything else?
Totally. And totally. And sometimes that happens, you think you're onto something that's really great and unique, and then you're kind of releasing it out into the wild, and then you're seeing other people release it to the wild at the same time.
That happens on projects all the time.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
So when you say, just for the listeners,
Yes.
when you say movement,
Yeah.
are you referring to variation?
Yeah.
Is that a similar?
Yeah.
So I would have thought variation, but when you said movement, I'm like, oh,
Yeah. So I guess it's that movement that you get from gentle color variation over a larger area,
yes.
because, the
Especially in a
tops-
mosaic, because
Yeah.
they're so small.
Yeah.
But when you put them all together, you're
Yeah.
saying that movement, that variation is you were trying to achieve a certain look.
Yep.
And you can't tell until it's in large scale, can you? That
Yeah.
you get the variation that you're after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Until you start to see those sheets on the ground, in say like 5, 6, 7, 8 sheets.
Yeah.
And that's where the movement comes in, because a glass mosaic is never in the same place. So you might have 3 different chips in there that are different shades, but they're not always going to be in the same position on the sheet.
Yes.
So when you start to get that greater scale, you start to see that movement that comes from that natural variation in placement. So yeah, it is variation in color, but I think it creates movement once it is actually in situ,
Yeah.
and especially in a moving environment like a pool.
I was just picturing that. Like, I'm like, you're so right. Because once the water's in and the sunlight or the clouds cover, or you're so right.
Which is an amazing aspect to working outdoors, because we're really heavily impacted by the changes in natural light. So a project can look completely different in the morning to at 2 p.m. or at night time.
When the pool lights are on as well,
Yeah.
the pool tile might seem more blue.
Yeah.
And during the day, it could be more ivory.
Yeah.
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 So I guess, for both myself and a potential customer, would you be able to say in most cases, hey, all right, a client's really wanting that ivory tile, for example, would you give a little sample and say, like what I find with paints, I'll say to my clients, get your sample pot from Dulux or Taubman's or wherever and go and put some paint on the wall. Have a look at it at 10 a.m. Have a look again at 4 p.m.
Yep.
Have a look again at, after dinner.
Yes.
You'll notice that it might be more grayer than you thought, or grayer, not sure that's a word, more grey than you thought, or it could be more beige in the morning, things like that. And they're like, oh, I would have never thought. Is that similar to what, would you do that for customers or?
Yeah, absolutely. So with pool tiles, it's a bit different, because you obviously have a body of water sitting on top.
Pop it in the tub.
Yeah. And it doesn't really work that way, unfortunately.
Open the windows.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. And the touch and feel of the product is so important. And
Texture,
texture,
gloss versus matte.
yeah, how it feels underfoot. And even, being able to touch that surface and understand, how coarse it might be or how smooth it might be. And, different people have different, I guess, priorities in what they're searching for, right? And
The
that's,
preferences.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's so important to understand.
Mm.
And as a business, we've really invested in our showroom spaces to give people that opportunity. I know there's, as we're moving forward with the digital world that we've come into, there's a lot of digital showrooms out there and people are looking at a lot of stuff online. But I think with product like what we supply, it's really important to touch and feel that product and to understand what it's like in greater masses. And even if it's not the exact product that you're looking at, you can see a product with a similar texture and you can
Totally.
see how the light responds to it. You can understand how it's going to vary naturally because a lot of our products are natural products.
Yes.
And natural stone is beautiful because it doesn't repeat itself,
And it's so natural. Like
yeah.
it's not artificial or engineered or manufactured.
No,
Yeah.
exactly right. And so, yeah, absolutely. We supply customers with our samples, but ultimately we encourage them to come and see what it is that they're purchasing because a sample swatch, a small piece, it's not really going to give you a complete understanding of it. And I think of it a little bit like buying a couch. It can look great on a website, but when I sit in it, is it comfortable? And that to me is very, very similar, I think, in respect to, what does it feel like underfoot? What does it look like over a larger mass? And then, what are your expectations as a client? Because if you're looking for something that's low maintenance and we're talking about a really
slip
porous
ratings.
product. Yeah,
Like,
slip ratings.
There's so much.
A slip rating could be P4 or P5, but feel completely different in two different products. How are those surfaces applied? Are the edges tumbled? Are they rectified?
Yes.
All of those different things that I guess ultimately make up the appearance of a product, the feel of a
The
product.
grouting or
Yeah. Different grout colors have so much impact on a product. And
yes.
so I think, when a client's looking at a sample or a swatch, that's a starting point. But ultimately, I think, they're great and they're really useful. And I think that they can be used highly effectively. But I think that when it comes to, a fairly large decision that's going to have a big impact on your space.
And it's an investment.
And it's an investment. There's definitely a lot of merit being able to come in and actually touch, feel, understand how that product interacts with other products that you might be considering looking at using, how it looks next to a wall cladding or...
But credit to your showroom because I remember the first time I went in probably 3 years ago.
Yep.
I think the first time I went in 4 years ago. And I was like, oh, being able to walk on this, seeing it on the walls, seeing it, all of that, it also just makes you feel, like you said earlier, oh, okay, I wasn't sure about that crazy pave in, with the undertones of beige and a bit more pinky color, like terracotta. But I can visualize that now in the white or the ivory or whatever it might be, or the travertine kind of tone.
Yeah.
So as long as I can see it large scale, you can then hold the actual color.
Yeah.
But you've got the visual.
Yeah.
And that really sets in for people.
100%.
Especially my clients. Like, I know it'll work.
Yeah.
I'm like, it'll 100% work. And they're like, so what are you picturing? And I'm like, okay, let's go into the showroom.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. It's the visual component of it is one characteristic. There's many more that ultimately are going to impact that client decision, especially with things like quartz where there's that, that natural sparkle that can come from that kind of product. Some people love it. Some people loathe it.
Yeah. Or the vein, how big and prominent the vein might be.
Yeah.
And if that's brown or if it's gold or if it's,
There's just so many contributing factors. And it's, I think, in that respect, likening it to that concept of paint on a wall, like that's going to become a lot more, I guess, intense over a larger space.
Yeah. Or carried through the whole home.
Or carried through the whole home. But you're not going to go and paint the whole house before you make a decision, you know? And I think that where it can be really handy to come in and look at spaces like our showrooms you're getting that opportunity to really experience it before you're having to commit to it.
Totally.
So yeah, that's something that I'm really passionate about, those spaces and the spaces that we've built. I think that, for me, it's always been something that I've just been hugely invested in. And, I'm there sweeping up the floors at the end of the day, or, troubleshooting with the guys around how we're going to install certain products. And it's because it all ultimately at the end of the day enhances our client experience, gives them a greater opportunity to make a better decision on something that they're going to live with for a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. And so then with scaling the business, so you've got the showroom. How many? Just the one?
No, we have 4 showrooms.
You got 4, but
Yeah.
New South Wales.
New South
Yeah.
Wales one, yeah. So we have 2. One is in our Leppington warehouse
That's right. Yeah.
space as well.
Okay. And is that open to public?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one in ACT and one in Brisbane in Fortitude Valley.
And so then with, I'm not a huge trends person, I think, because I find longevity, timelessness, versatility a little bit more of a forefront priority for me than trends. So when clients will say, "Oh, I saw this, it's really trendy," I'm like, "That's great. However, are you going to love that in 3 years? Because we're building it. It's not just a side table and that we can sub out when you get bored of it."
Yeah.
What are you finding at the moment, given that you've got that large scale overseas connections and what's coming up? What are you finding, if you don't mind disclosing?
I mean, not at all. I mean, yeah, we travel every year somewhere, but typically to Italy
Okay.
for the trade fairs there. And
Are you going this April?
I am actually, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. In September, there are ceramic and stone specific trade fairs. So this year is actually very much around getting into probably a bit more of that trend based understanding or clarity around where the market is headed, because it's not something that we've really focused on a lot in the past. I'm a bit of a keep it simple person in our approach to products. I think that there's, like you said, that timelessness is hugely impactful. But having just been to the shows in September, what we saw was that the industry hasn't really moved much since a couple of years ago. From what I saw, there might be people out there who saw other things that I didn't, or opportunities where I didn't. But it feels like at the moment we are kind of treading a path that I think Australia is a little bit different to Europe as well. But a lot of the cream tones, the beige tones seem to be like very focused on, and
in different textures.
Yeah, in different textures. Yeah,
Finding everyone's getting into the textural side of things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And different formats as well. Crazy pave seems to be everywhere at the moment, and seems to be something that people are really loving. There's some really beautiful spaces being created with it as well. But that's the beauty of this industry. It's driven by really passionate people who are looking for new opportunities, or new innovations in design. And innovation is a bit of a I think it's a bit like
Everyone loves to hear it.
Yeah, everyone loves
so
it.
innovative.
It's so innovative. But I think if you are constantly striving to be innovative as well, then you're always looking, which for me, I think is
being on the front foot.
Yeah, that's a really big part of trying to stay, I guess, market relevant as a starting point, but then also to try and push the market to be more innovative. Because if we can supply products that people haven't used before, then it's one thing for us to source the product and for us to find something that we're excited about. But then when it gets into the hands of an architect or a designer, they can take it to places that we never even imagined it was going to be used. And so then that opens up a whole world of possibilities. And at that point where, I guess really just a vehicle to the next destination. And that's really exciting because we see our products applied in ways where, I would never have thought it was going to be used in that way.
It's that classic, every time I will call a supplier and have that conversation, it's so collaborative.
Mm.
And that's what I'm finding more and more as I get, further into my career.
Yeah.
You don't know how you might be able to use something. So have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's not only the way that I envision using it, or I might think there's a limit, but then I call you and you're like, you know what, we haven't done it, but we could.
Yeah, we absolutely could. Yeah.
So you're going to be the first.
Yeah.
Let's make this happen.
Let's
And a bit of trial and error. But
Yeah.
it's like that is where you are stepping outside of what you knew.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm doing it. You're doing it. We're committing to this.
Yeah.
The client's probably loving it as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not?
And that's been hugely beneficial for us as a business as well because, we've always custom ordered product. That's always been something that we've been open to.
So what are the lead times at the moment then?
So it'll depend where you're sourcing it from,
Yeah.
but typically somewhere between 12 and 18 weeks.
Yeah.
And
on a new build, like as long as you're specifying early, you've got time.
So yeah,
That's a tip for the listeners. Specify early.
Yeah.
Your interior designer just put it in that schedule
Absolutely.
really early. Yeah.
It gives you,
Pay that deposit.
I mean, it just gives you so much more peace of mind.
Yes.
And, we're in the world of global shipping. So, I mean, there's going to be times when there's going to be delays.
Yeah.
So the more time, the better. And
Yeah.
that's just the simple fact. But, by us doing that and, we're a business that has containers arriving continuously, week in, week out.
Do they get a Leppington?
Yeah.
Yes.
They do. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, we have always taken on custom order work. And so for us, that's been great because we've always had the opportunity to see what people are looking for, which has been hugely useful. And, we might see things continuously being requested. But it also gives us the opportunity to really push the boundaries of our own capabilities as well. And so, then we get to work obviously, in a lot more of a varied manner where we're able to bring in, certain customer sized pieces or patterns, or we're being asked to, whether or not we can produce something in a particular format or in, different sizes that are then utilized together. And so that then gives us great insight as a business as to what, designers and architects and
what the demand is.
Yeah, what the demand is. And then also, we've got, I guess, this great position of them being able to look at, well, is there actually potentially other products that we can apply this to that might, we might have a request for a particular product that is, quite left field, but then that could be applied to something that we know people like to use consistently because the colors work really well in, varied designs or
quite a versatile range.
Yeah, versatile range. So that's been really interesting. And we also, I guess, because we're so closely connected with our clients, we get insight into what they're looking for or what they're seeing is, I guess, moving forward at an industry level as well. So now we have some new porcelain products coming in at the moment where we've been specifically asked for, more surface texture to be included in the product. Or particular, characteristics in the print. And then for us, the challenge is to go and find that. And then
chat with your suppliers and
Yeah.
how do we achieve this?
Yeah. And sometimes that could be, we don't have a starting point. We have to go and find that person or that company that can produce that for us.
Give me 12 months.
Yeah. Basically.
To get the right fit.
To get the right fit. Yeah. But then that's, it's also so exciting when you find it and you connect with new people and then they have new products that we might not have been across before, and
You're
it just
opening up
continuously expands.
Yeah. And that's where it's exciting, isn't it? Because you can, coming back to sort of the day-to-day business stuff, you can get caught in, all right, this is what I need to get done for my week to finish and my clients to have what they need and for me to be across all the projects and whatnot. And this is exactly like what you and I were saying about, different people in different roles.
Yeah.
And the owner's not trying to do everything because you need to be able to say, all right, I'm going to delegate those types of tasks, hey, these are the admin, this is what needs to get done. If we get 70% of that done, then I can also then focus on, okay, cool. I need to call Craig. I've got something that's really unique. We need time. We need to look at this now so that he can start working in the background, like all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's why getting in early is so important.
Absolutely.
And I say this to clients over and over. Don't call me when you're just working out that you want to start something and the architectural plans have been done, because they usually think that you're just going to whip up all the tiles and all the surface finishes like now. But they want the best of the best.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, we've got to have those conversations with the suppliers. I want to get you through their showrooms. I want you to look, touch, feel, have it all there, look at it in different lights. Like, we need time.
Yeah.
So it's such a nice tip, I think, for customers and clients to know, get in there early.
Yeah, and I think that there's a common misconception because, so much stuff is available for purchase in the
Beaumont tiles.
Well, just in general, like across all industries, you think of clothing, you can jump online, you can buy it straight away, have it delivered in 3 days.
Or next day delivery.
Yeah, these kinds of products, they obviously take more time. I think on the flip side of that, it's also really important to think about how that project then gets completed. One of the things that we've always really focused on as a business is holding stock, having stock available. One, because, we work with a lot of people who aren't all that well organized and obviously are dealing with then end clients who are also not organized. So we get to a crunch point where they need a product really quickly. And we can produce that, we can deliver that because we hold stock on hand. But also when we talk about ordering well in advance, it's great, but you get to the end of that project and what if there's not enough of that product? And where do you go from there? What's the way to complete that? Because, it's common that there could be more wastage on site than expected, or there might be an additional area that gets added in once you're actually getting into that final installation process. So, we don't, if it's a custom item, we'll order the quantity that we're asked to order. But I think, what we see with a lot of people who are well planned and who are ordering product that, a lot of the product that gets used in outdoor spaces is fairly similarly sized. Where I think they can get caught out at times is they get to the end of that installation and there's not enough product. And because they've ordered it in advance from somebody with a lead time, they find that, now I've got another 12, 14, 16 weeks to wait for that.
I can't finish
product.
this project until that's in.
Yeah. So that's a really fine line for us to tread as well, because, for us as a business, we work with such a large range of clients, from your architect to your end user. That stock on hand component, that ability to be able to respond quickly, you think of like a wall cladding that's going up across a large area of an outdoor space. You don't want to get to, the last 10 square meters and realize that you're 6 square meters short, and then you're talking about differences, batches and color variation.
It's like timber.
Isn't that? Yeah.
It's like, this is another batch now.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting side of our business as well, because I think that actually gets equally overlooked.
Yeah.
You've got, yes, you need the lead time, but then also there's that value in, there being backup if you require it. And again, because our business is really so customer centric and, people, there are a lot of businesses that do what we do. And that's really ultimately where the differences lie, in the quality control and in the customer service. For us to be able to service our customers adequately, the knowledge that we've got additional stock available is really, another piece in the puzzle to being able to service them right through to that completion point.
And reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely reassuring.
And for the builder.
Yeah. I mean, for the builder, for the designer, like the last thing you want is be having a conversation with your client about a
They can't
16-week delay.
Housewarming pool party.
Yeah.
It's not finished.
Not happening.
Yeah, it's so true. There's so many moving parts.
Mm.
And that's one thing I think is underrated in our industry, how many moving parts there are. We're all project managers to some extent.
Mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm super grateful for about my experience in Artisan is I've literally done every portion of the business at some point in time. I've performed every role outside of accounts.
Worn all the hats.
Yeah, worn all the hats. I've unloaded containers, I've packed jobs, I've, been involved in marketing and all of those things. They form that experience to understand, okay, as a business, what do we need to do to be able to service that end client properly? And, you know, that comes down to so many moving parts, like you said. And it's, QCing containers at both sides. And we QC at supplier end, but we also QC
quality control.
Yeah, so we QC every container that comes through our warehouse.
Industry lingo.
Yeah, sorry, we quality control every container that comes through our
kind of
warehouse.
get it.
Yeah. But that's a huge portion of being able to be confident that the product that's being delivered to site is as expected. And then, one of the big things for me, and I think any sales-based industry, I think it's easy to say, oh, the product's been delivered, the job's completed. But it's really not. Like, that's really where it starts, right? So for us, it's really super important that the job is not completed until the product's installed and the client's happy. Because yes, we could have done all of this excellent work up until the point of delivering the product to site. And that's really where we're handing the product over to the builder or the installer. And, we're putting our faith in their expertise to complete the project. But that doesn't mean that we're no longer responsible. And so for us as a business, we really then at that point need to make sure that, okay, everything's gone smoothly on site. There's clear understanding on how to install it. There's a clear understanding on how to clean and seal it if that's applicable. And then, is there anything else that's required from us for the client to really feel like they've got their finished product? Because that's really, at the end of the day, what we're doing. We're trying to create an experience. Somebody who's going to use this product a lot in most cases, and who has probably been through an incredible amount of stress and, even if it's gone really smoothly, have put a lot of energy and time and effort into, creating a space that they're then experiencing on a daily level.
Yeah.
And all the people that touch that along the way, the designer to builder or the installer or landscaper, the pool builder, there's just so many people that are invested. Which again is a huge part of what excites me about our industry, because they're all passionate people. So yeah, it's a real privilege in that respect, but it's definitely what drives us and what motivates us as a business.
And so on that note then, have you got, I should ask, a favorite project to date? Is there anything you've just thought, wow, who would have thought that would have looked that good? Or
yeah, I mean, honestly, our Brisbane showroom was a project that I just loved working on.
Yeah.
Even though it's not for an end user other than, well, it is, but
it's an experience.
It's an experience.
And it's showcasing your products. So it's still kind of a project.
Yeah. I mean, that was just incredibly fun to see all that come together and to work with so many great people who were involved in that. But in terms of projects that I think are, where the client gets to experience the product as their own product. There's been some of those custom order projects that have been really, really, stressful in terms of the ordering process and the collaboration process.
Logistics and
yeah, and there's a particular product that always sticks in my mind where we had this perfectly round spa where the designer wanted a a coping piece that went around it that had a drop down on it. So an L-shaped coping piece that followed the radius.
Seamless kind of edge.
Yeah.
Top.
It followed the radius of this spa. And so there were so many components to getting it right. We had to put it into manufacture before the spa was built because it had to be here on time. And we all had to work to this design and put our faith in each other that we were all going to get our components right. So all-wheeler forming up the spa and making sure that it was poured perfectly and exactly as to the drawings, and us taking the drawings and making sure that it was manufactured.
The accuracy
was really, really high. So to see that go in and be installed and get that phone call, not to say, oh, we've got a problem, but to say, yeah, it's in, it looks great. That was incredibly rewarding. Yeah. And it looked phenomenal. It was a spectacular project when it was finished. But yeah, I would say that that's definitely my favorite project that I've worked on.
Is that one on the website?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
It is on the website.
In case anyone wants to have a little look, including myself.
Yeah, it is.
Cool to see.
It's a really cool design. Beautiful project. I can tell you where to find it.
Oh yeah. Tell us where to find it.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's it would be in our past pool tiles section.
Okay.
So the pool tiles in that project were a really large portion of it as well. There's a spillover detail on one end of the pool, and it's also
like
curved.
infinity kind of energy. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was a very cool project.
That's exciting.
And that's one that sticks in my mind because that was quite a few years ago, and so that was something where we weren't that familiar with that level of detail at that point in time. So to overcome that hurdle and then to gain the confidence from that, then you work on so many more projects that have that level of detail and that level of I guess accuracy required.
Yeah.
But you step into each of those more capable, more confident. You've learned all the lessons from that.
Yes. Or this is what we didn't do last time that we're going to make sure that we implement this time.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we did do or didn't do.
Yeah.
And this is what we've learned as a team.
This is what worked. This is what didn't. Yeah.
And don't you think just off the back of that, like one thing I've learned, few facets to this, but like when you mature as a business owner and just get that little bit more elevated in your professionalism, owning mistakes, so big, like underrated. And if because that's something I was going to check in with you, what would you say to someone who wants to enter the industry, as a young gun who's, let's go, ambitious, driven.
Yep.
But there's a bit of ego attached to that sometimes because it's classic visionary. You've got the bigger picture, but you do need to have those conversations with customers. And sometimes you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And you make those mistakes. And it's kind of going, well, I'm human. My intention was A. This was the result. Let's talk about it. Let's communicate how we can come out of this. And I reckon that would be hands down one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
Yeah.
Is to just kind of own it.
100%. Yeah.
As hard as it is. But you'll go to bed that night going, I'm glad I did that. Absolutely. We had a really good chat about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll ultimately lead there anyway, right? Like, people will typically try and shy away from the truth, and then it catches up, and then there's that moment anyway. It's just when you own it, it's on your terms.
Yeah, don't get to the confronting kind of moment.
Absolutely.
Address it early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head with the word ego. I really don't think there's a place for ego in business. I think that it's highly destructive. It clouds decisions. It really works against you. And I think when you can remove all the ego from the room and you're looking at something objectively and with humility, and you're open to, hearing what the people around you have to say and taking the good from that and elevating your idea or your concept or your decision. I mean, that's that's the best outcome you can hope for. But that's really hard to do when there's ego present. And I think that, for younger business owners who are, um, you know, starting out with that fire and with that intensity and with that, I guess, cockiness that comes with being younger and
Call it for what it is.
yeah,
Call it spade a spade.
yeah. If you can keep that in check and be aware of it, it's just going to be so much easier. You're going to have a heap more fun. You'll enjoy yourself a lot more. You will burn a lot less bridges probably, and probably find the people around you are a lot more genuine as a result as well.
And aligned.
Yeah.
That's a big one without, a bit of woo-woo alignment. But it's kind of true. Like, I've found that as I've evolved into more of like who's Camilla in Unfolded, not who should Camilla be.
Yeah.
Again, took a lot of maturity and a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness. But I feel like in the last probably 18 months, I'm really there.
Yep.
Hence, the podcast and having the courage to do all this type of thing outside of the full-time job. It's like, oh, okay, she is actually less ego-driven. She's actually quite humble and calm and responsive. You know how we were talking about reactive versus responsive earlier? It's like if you put yourself in someone else's shoes and I was to be ego-driven with them, reactive and whatnot, that person's going to be like, I can't connect.
Yep.
So it's like, why are we shutting off that connection?
Yeah.
With not only who we work with, but our clients and customers.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a lesson across the board, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's so useful to carry through. And you look back on, the different moments that I guess are pivotal for you as a business owner. And
personally and professionally.
Yeah. And, I think the ones that you're really proud of are the ones where they're reflective of your best nature.
Yeah.
And you, like you say, forming those really strong relationships and bonds, particularly in an industry like ours, which is ultimately like fairly small at the end of the day.
I've learnt that with the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually.
Yeah. It's not.
Once you connect, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, it's like a small town, like everyone knows everyone. And
you've met before, but you haven't used the product, this type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it definitely, I think by forming those relationships and being able to form those genuine relationships makes it so much more enjoyable to be there every day.
Yeah.
To be part of, whatever is coming across your desk at the time. Sometimes, I'll be having like one of those days where you walk in and you just wish you never walked in. And then I'll get a call.
Or you're just not on.
Yeah, or you're just not on.
Mondays.
Yeah.
Hashtag Monday.
And you'll get a call from a client who, you've dealt with for a really long time. And it's just hey, how you going? What you been up to?
Yeah.
I had someone reach out to me the other day because they saw that someone had left the business, just to say like, how you going? Like,
just to check in.
Is everything good? And I was great. I was fantastic, but I got this opportunity to have a chat with somebody else in the industry who had literally just called to make sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a really, really lovely thing about, again, working with people that are passionate about what they're doing. And obviously, people who have been through similar journeys where they've had those moments where they really feel the pressure and, as a result are, probably a better version of themselves as well.
Yeah. And they're empathetic to maybe what you might be experiencing.
Yeah.
So they're able to reach out. I've been there. It was rough, wasn't it? And
yeah.
You're like, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
A little rough. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
No one's asked me yet.
And then you feel like it's a little bit shared.
Yes.
Which is really nice.
Often it is.
Yeah.
We just don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. 100%. Actually, coming back to that COVID time, one of the guys who is one of the owners of Marnie Group, who built the showroom space.
Okay.
He came in one day and sat down and we had a chat, and he was looking really stressed. And I said, are you okay, man? He's like, yeah, I'm good. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm really good.
And you're both
And
like,
well, it was, yeah, hilariously, a year later, I said to him, oh man, you looked like super stressed at that time. Hey, like,
hey.
you
Yeah.
all good? Like, is everything okay? And he's like, honestly, man, I wasn't stressed for me. I was stressed for you. I was like really, really worried that, you were building this showroom, like everything was going into lockdown. And like, I was just like thinking, man, this guy's like in a world of pain. And it was such a moment for me. I was like, wow, like
I wouldn't have thought you thought that.
yeah. So again, I think, when you mentioned that it doesn't get talked about enough, I think it is great that there's things like this where people are sharing experiences, because so much of them are common and shared experiences.
That's why everyone loves listening to our conversations, because they're like, my God, I went through that. And I'm only just like telling people now.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
And it does make it easier, it makes it easier to
It's
understand that,
relatable.
other
Yeah.
people have been through similar moments, and irrespective of industry, at the end of the day, like we're all, like you say, waking up at 3 a.m. And sometimes that's great because you're waking up and you got a great idea.
Inspired by something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the golden moments, right? And
Or
then,
forgot to attach a file to an email.
yeah, exactly.
One or the other.
They're the other ones. Yeah.
And it probably can wait till 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
But you
Leave
need
brain.
to do it.
Damn it.
Just calm.
Yeah.
So, before I end with the final question, where can people find you?
Yeah, okay. So we've got 4 showroom locations across New South Wales, ACT, and Queensland. So we're definitely able to be found there.
Yeah. And that's so clients, for interior designers to bring clients through, and open to public.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And then our website, artisanexterior.com.au, and on Instagram, which is at artisanexterior.au.
Wonderful.
And yeah.
Cool. And so I like to finish with a bit of a fun question
Yeah.
at the end. This could be personal or professional.
Yep.
What is the most chaotic home or project that you've stepped into?
Yeah, it'd definitely be my own home at about 6 p.m. on a weekday. Trying to get the kids to unpack their school bags and get showered and eat dinner and all of that fun stuff that you do at the end of the day.
Chaos.
Yeah, it can be chaos.
Mm.
Yeah, sometimes it's very calm, but I think most of the time it's
chaos.
pretty chaotic.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's good. That
Yeah.
goes to show that projects aren't chaotic for you.
No,
I mean, I'm sure there's
I'm
moments.
sure they are, but I mean, we're always working with people at the point at which they're making selections, so that chaotic on-site part is typically not our portion of the project. In saying that, there's always times where there are things that are required on site, and there's been a few times where I know that myself and some of the other guys in the team have hand loaded pavers in or out of a site, to get something fixed for someone quickly, but yeah, maybe I've just blocked those ones out of my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
Yeah.
So just at home, just when you get
at
home.
Just when I get home.
And quick one, at
Yes.
home, is it full Artisan Exterior products?
Oh, that's a good question. No, it's
No?
not.
Mixed bag?
So
Don't talk about competitors.
no. Well, it's ironic because I live in an apartment.
Mm.
So I actually live in an apartment that was built before I moved in.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I always look at the products and it's the first thing that you see. I
Naturally.
always say to people who start working with us that that you're kind of fully integrated when you're walking to dinner, and you notice what pavers you're walking on
Literally.
the way there, and
Or the wall cladding, or
and they often come back to me sort of 3 or 4 weeks later and they're like, I went to dinner the other night and I noticed I was on granite. Damn you. But one of the things that I have managed to be able to put in there that I absolutely love, a mate of mine has started a landscape design business, Slice of Paradise, and he absolutely adores our land air range of pots, and so do I.
Yeah, because you've got a bit of furniture and decor as well.
Yeah, we do. And the land air product is something it's just really beautiful to look at. And so yeah, we actually were out a while ago at lunch, and he said, "Can I do something with your balcony because it's looking pretty boring at the moment?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, I love that." And we now have this just most incredible cluster of land air pots at the end of our balcony, and we've kind of integrated them into the house as well. And
Nice.
they're just so beautiful to look at. And I think, anything green, it just
Indoor and out.
yeah, it just makes it look so inviting. So yeah, every afternoon I get home now and I look out, and
Does that lessen the chaos or
yeah, it makes you calm.
calmer?
I
Imagine it would.
Yeah.
And you're like, and that's my products too.
Yeah. Well,
Proud moment.
yeah, it's like one of those moments where you get to actually enjoy what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. I love seeing that every day. But so many projects that I've worked on with friends and family where I go over to someone's house and they've got our products there, and that's always super rewarding. And yeah, I can't wait to one day build the dream home. And I'm so torn about which way I'm going to go with products because, yeah,
we know too much.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
So much to see. And
it's hard.
And then, yeah.
Good hard. We're in a good position.
Yeah, exactly. I think also, you want to put your faith in the architect or the designer and not go and clutter up that whole space with some mishmash of like
all your favorites.
Yeah. Yeah. You see,
it's good.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a bit too much like a Pinterest board,
Yeah.
So
it's cluttered.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you're always battling that.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Design. We've created this podcast to bring people together, inspire new ideas, and foster a deeper understanding of what goes on behind the design. If you don't want to miss the next episode, hit the follow button on whatever platform you listen to your podcast. Until next time, keep creating and stay inspired.